Well, several Democratic candidates have been kept off the campaign trail because of the impeachment trial, and now they have just 2 more days to woo voters in Iowa before the nation's first caucus kicks off election season. ABC's Rachel Scott is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, with this last big push. Good morning to you, Rachel.
Eva, good morning. The senators in this race will be working overtime this weekend, trying to make up for precious lost days campaigning. This is crunch time. We are 2 days out from the first vote, and it's still anybody's race. Senator Elizabeth Warren wasting no time, racing from Capitol Hill to Iowa, surprising a crowd overnight.
Hello, Des Moines! I heard there were some people who wanted to do some selfies.
As Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign rallied supporters with a concert. With the weekend off from the impeachment trial, the senators running for president scrambling back to the trail 2 days out from the first vote. Their rivals have spent most of their time campaigning here, flooding every corner of the state. Former Vice President Joe Biden on a 20-city, 17-county bus tour. Mr. Vice President, have you benefited from having the state largely to yourself during this critical stretch?
All I know is it's been feeling good for a long time here, and it still feels good, and we're going to keep moving.
And Mayor Pete Buttigieg traveling nearly 700 miles in a swing across Iowa. Buttigieg slipping in the polls, now stepping up his attacks on his rivals who are pushing ahead.
Senator Sanders is offering an approach that suggests that we either have to choose between a revolution or the status quo.
But in the fight to defeat President Trump, Democratic voters are torn over the direction of the party and which candidate can take it over the finish line.
You can elect the safe choice, but I think in order to really fix a broken system, electing somebody like Elizabeth is the only way to get it done.
The Democrats need to nominate somebody that's more centrist, and I'm afraid that if we go any other direction, that we're going to lose.
And another shakeup in this race, a rule change could allow Michael Bloomberg to get on the debate stage later this month in Nevada. The DNC dropping the donor threshold, opening up the door for the billionaire mayor who is self-funding his campaign to potentially qualify. Eva?
All right, Rachel, for us. And tune in Monday for our live coverage of the results of the Iowa caucuses right here on ABC.
So much going on, so much to talk about this morning. We are, as we've been saying, in the home stretch in both Iowa and, of course, in the impeachment trial. So let's bring in ABC News chief political analyst Matthew Dow, joining us from Texas this morning, and right here in the studio, NYU law professor Melissa Murray. Melissa, let me start with you. In the Senate trial, legally, is this a done deal, or are there potentially any twists that could come at the end to derail the march toward acquittal?
I think it would take an absolute political tornado to derail this. This train is pulling into the station. The president is likely to be acquitted, as it were, on Wednesday with that vote.
Well, let me turn to you with this, Matt. Assuming that Melissa's right, that the president is likely to be acquitted next week, politically, are there winners and losers here?
Well, so broadly, I think one of the big losers is the constitutional system of checks and balances. The founders envisioned a president who might push their power too far, but they never envisioned a Senate abdicating the responsibility to hold that president in check. And it's sort of, give it a football analogy on the winners and losers, since it's on Super Bowl weekend, is the Republicans won in the short term, but it's a little bit like winning a football game but losing a bunch of players to injury, because I think in the end, in the long term, what this could really do is hurt those people running for office for the Senate and possibly the president in the long term going to November. So I think it's a mixed bag on this, but definitely I think our system of checks and balances suffered during this time. Melissa, there are some people on the left who have worried aloud that an acquittal is going to give a green light to the president to go and solicit further interference by foreign governments in our elections. Do you share that concern?
Well, I think it's a very real concern, certainly since one of the president's defenders, Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard Law School, suggested that anything that the president did in anticipation of his reelection or in furtherance of his reelection was actually okay. That's a stunning statement that I think most constitutional law scholars would take objection with.
And what about this vote that we saw late yesterday to bar witnesses? Does that set a precedent going forward?
Well, we've had so few presidential impeachments in our history that everything that happens in one necessarily impacts the subsequent ones that happen. And so the fact that we, for the first time, have had an impeachment of a president without witnesses will surely set a bar for the future and will allow presidents to stonewall on the question of witnesses.
Matt, let me go back to you for more on the political aspects here. We're heading, as you know, into Iowa. Is the impeachment trial likely to cast a large shadow, or are the voters and candidates likely to ignore it?
Well, we're in such a disruptive moment. We're in such a unique time that we've never had an impeachment of a president going into his reelection. We've never had that before in our history, and obviously we've never had before in Iowa at a caucus in the midst of an impeachment time. To me, what it's likely to do is bolster the people making the argument of electability going into Iowa. Now, anything can happen. We've seen it happen before. But if I were betting on a candidate, I would bet on the candidate where voters think they're the most electable, because I think at this point in time, for Democratic voters, they've put a premium on who can beat Donald Trump in the general election. And for that point, right now, Joe Biden leads on that score. So I think electability is going to be the key on caucus night on Monday.
What's that old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times? We certainly are. Matthew and Melissa, our dream team, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And a reminder, we will have live coverage of the Senate impeachment trial when it resumes at 11 Eastern Monday morning right here on ABC.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.